Number 1, I want you to go ahead and enter what you got for number 1. Now, please enter what you got and don't look over and copy because nobody's going to know if you're right or wrong. You will know, but nobody else is going to know. No, I will tell you the answer once everybody's submitted. No, this is for practice for the test. Oh, I'll see. You'll see how it works. Okay, we're waiting on one more person to answer. Okay, most people put B, but I'm thinking this is like one person each, so that means I need to go over it so that these two people know what to do Friday. Okay, this is a quick. It won't take me long at all to go over. We're trying to get x by itself. To get rid of the squared, you simply square root. They're inverse operations. If you square root one side, you square root the other side. The square root of 16 is 4. Anytime you square root something when solving for x, you put plus or minus. Remember, the reasoning for that is because 4 squared equals 16, but so does negative 4 squared, because the negative times the negative will also be a positive 16. So B is correct. Now submit your answer for number 2. That's fine. But it looks like a lot of work to y'all because I'm literally writing down every detail to help people understand, where y'all might not always write down every detail. I know. But see, Josh, I have to teach you in a way that if you can't just look at it and know the number, you have a method to solve it. Okay, so for this one, I forgot what most people put, but the correct answer is D. Okay, so let's go over it. To get the x by itself, you would need to move the 5. Well, since it's minus 5, you have to add it to cancel it out, and then you add it to the other side, making the other side a 36. Now it looks just like the one in problem 1. To cancel out the squared, you square root it, leaving x by itself, but when you square root 36, you get 6, and remember, you always put plus or minus, because 6 squared is 36, but so is negative 6 squared. Okay, submit your answer for 3. I know, that's fine, that's fine. Submit your answer for 3. Shh. Remember, the video is still going. Here, grab one of these, Abby. No, a paper, sorry. They've already done the work, so you just don't need a device. Okay, we're waiting on just a couple of people to answer 3. Who's this other one? The other... Well, just guess. Okay, the correct answer is C. Let's go over it because quite a few of you got it wrong. Okay, and there will be one just like this on the test. So if you didn't get it right, you better pay attention or you're going to get it wrong again when it counts. Number 3, we're trying to get x by itself. So the first thing we need to do is subtract the 5 to cancel it on that side, and then we subtract it over here. Now I have 5x squared equals 125. Now to solve for x, I need to remove the 5, and they're being multiplied together, so to undo that, I divide it. That then gives me x squared equals 25, and now it looks just like problem number 1, so I square root it, and the only difference is with this answer, instead of them just writing the 5 once and putting the plus or minus sign, they literally wrote out both of them. They wrote out the negative 5 and the positive 5. Okay, try submit your answer for number 4. Yeah, or try it real quick while you're waiting on everybody else to put their answer in. Okay, the correct answer is B. Now, I'm going to show you multiple ways you could do this problem, so just put down your pencil and pay attention. If I were working this problem, I would immediately notice that they both have something in common. They both have an x. So I would factor that x out. That's called a GCF. And then what remains is x times x is x squared. X times negative 5 is negative 5x. But that's only factored. They want it solved. They want the solution. So I would have to set the x equal to 0. And now I know that either A or B is right because they both have 0. And I would set the x minus 5 equal to 0. But to solve it for x, couldn't I add the 5 to the other side to get it away, giving me the other solution of 5? Now, another way to do it that I'm not going to do because it would be way too time consuming is quadratic formula. The A is 1, the B is negative 5, and the C is 0. I would just plug them in the formula on the whiteboard and it would still give me the answer 0 and 5. Another way to do it would be to plug in 0 in both x's and see if you get a 0. And then at least try 5. If you plug in a 0, 0 squared minus 5 times 0 equals 0. If you plug in a 5, what's 5 squared? And then minus what's 5 times 5? So won't that also make a 0? Those are the two numbers that when plugged in will actually make a 0. And then even another way, and probably the easiest way. Anytime you're asked to solve a quadratic equation and all of your answers are pretty much whole numbers except maybe this one, graph it. Go to your calculator, y equals, and type in x squared minus 5x. You're not paying attention in the front. When you graph it, it forms a parabola because it is a quadratic equation, and it crosses the x-axis at 0 and at 5, which is why 0 and 5 are the solutions. Okay, so now do number 5. And what I just showed you means that nobody should miss 5 or 6. But what I just showed you, you should be able to quickly do 5 or 6 and get the right answer with what I just showed you. No, this is a minus 4x and a minus 12. The only time, like if there were a negative out in front of the x squared, it would be negative because it's in front, it's not connecting two terms. But if it's connecting two terms, it's a minus. Okay, the correct answer was C. But wait, are y'all's choices are different because I made a correction on this. Is C negative 2 and 6? Okay, let's go over it. I'm pretty sure, but let's go over it just to make sure. Okay, the first thing that I would do, since it says factor, is I would factor it. I would notice that this is a quadratic equation with an A value of 1. So technically we could do quadratic formula, or I just see it as an easy one to factor because you can just multiply to get the C of negative 12, add to get the B of negative 4. What numbers do that? Right. But now remember, those are the factors. The final solutions, which are otherwise called zeros, wouldn't you have to set that equal to 0 and it would become x equals positive 6? And you would set that equal to 0 and subtract the 2 and you would get x equals negative 2? Well, when it says zeros, they're talking about the solution. Zeros, solutions, x-intercepts is all the same thing. Look, think about it, Naya. They're called zeros because you have to set the factor equal to 0. Okay, and because they're the x-intercepts, which is where y is 0. Okay, now you could also graph it, which is the easiest way if you don't know how to do any of the other methods. You just go to y equals, and you type in x squared minus 4x minus 12. They both were minus, right? Yeah, they were. Okay, you graph it, you look for the parabola that it forms, and then you see that it crosses at negative 2 and at positive 6, which are the solutions. Okay, what is on the graph is the solution. You do not change the sign of that. What you see on the graph is the final solution. Okay, now try number 6. Make sure you look up there and check if you've answered. Okay, the correct answer is D. Guys, I don't know what to say about this. I've showed y'all an easy way to get this answer. Okay, even if you don't know how to factor, you simply graph it. You go to y equals and you type in 2x squared plus 10x minus 12. 2x squared minus 10x plus 12. And when you graph it, it'll form a parabola because it's quadratic. I'm thinking I did whatever was on the paper. Plus 10x minus 12. I may have made a mistake. Yeah. So it's plus 10 then minus 12? Okay. Okay, once you've typed it in, you graph it and you just look for where it crosses the x-axis. It crosses at -6 and +1. So -6 and +1 are your solutions. Now, just for practice, I will show you how to actually factor it. When I look at this trinomial, I see that the a value is bigger than 1. It's 2. But I also notice that all 3 of these numbers are divisible by 2. So I divide it out, making it the what? The GCF. Then the trinomial that remains when I divide each term by 2 is x squared plus 5x minus 6. Now I have a trinomial that was as easy as the previous one. I can bubble method by looking for 2 numbers that multiply to -6 and add to 5. That would be a +6 minus 1. Would make a 5 when you add them and would multiply to -6. But then remember, when they're in factors, you have to then set them equal to 0. So like x plus 6 equals 0, you would have to minus the 6, giving you -6. And if you set x minus 1 to 0, you would have to add the 1, giving you +1. Another way to get those answers would be quadratic formula. A is 2, B is 10, C is -12. If you plug them in the quadratic formula, it will give you -6 and +1. Okay, go to the next page. Yes, Sion? Okay. Put in your answer for 7. This one was tougher, but I will explain it. Just try. All right, the correct answer is B. Okay, only a third if you got it right. So let's go over it. It says solve the quadratic equation by completing the square or quadratic formula. I'm going to go the route of quadratic formula because that's what y'all are more comfortable with. So the first thing I need to do is identify the A, B, and C. The A is, Josh, pay attention. Sorry. No, yeah, Josh is right. B is 2, C is. Then once you've done that, you go ahead and take care of the discriminant, that formula up under the square root, the b squared minus 4ac. B is 2, A is 1, C is -9. You type that in and you get a 40. Since your discriminant is positive, that tells you that you're going to have two solutions. You continue on with the quadratic formula to find the two solutions. So you do negative b, which would be negative 2, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, which is 40, divided by 2 times the a value, and the a is 1, so 2 times 1 is 2. Now, I'm aware that that doesn't look like any of these. Go ahead and type it in and tell me what the decimals are. One of them's definitely wrong. They're not the exact same thing, opposite signs, I do know that. Everybody should be typing this in for practice, because Friday you better not ask me how to type in a fraction. Right, because it's like negative 4.16 and negative 4.2, and then what's the other one? Wasn't it 2.16 as well? I don't remember, honestly. Let somebody else confirm that. 2.16. So that's 2.2. Everybody agrees with those? Okay, now watch. Let me show you what they did. The first thing that you could definitely do is recognize that a negative 2 divided by a positive 2 will reduce to a what? A negative 1. But this negative 1 is multiplied by that and should have a plus or minus, so it's out. Now what I want you to do, since we've pretty much narrowed it down by looking at those numbers to a negative 1, type in negative 1 plus the square root of 10. Which was this answer, right? Now type in negative 1 minus the square root of 10. Right. That's all you would have to do is narrow it down and then type it in twice, once with the plus, once with the minus, to make sure it matches up with what you got as decimals. Now, you're not going to have to do this, but let me show you what they did. Let me show you how they ended up with this. They took that square root of 40 to the side, and they factor treated it, which you know how to do, but it's been a while. 4 times 10 is 40, a 4 is 2 times 2, and a 10 is a 2 times 5. Circle, kill one, kick one out, 2 times 5 goes back inside. So you now replace this square root of 40 with 2 square roots of 10. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Positive 2 divided by 2 is positive 1, which you don't have to write, and then square root of 10. Does that make sense, how they got the square root of 10? But like I said, you're not going to have to do that. As long as you are able to pretty much narrow it down to 1 or 2 choices, can't you just type them each in and see which ones produce the decimals that you got? Tonight, you need to continue working on this review sheet by yourself. Go back and work on the ones that we did today that you still do not understand. Watch the video, okay? Because tomorrow, we're not going to have as much time at the beginning for you to work on your own. I'm just going to have to start going over them pretty quickly into class so that we can get through them all.